Let's go over the 1.5 samplers. So what you see on screen right now is actually 4 versions of the roughly same thing. That is only for personal choice. There's no difference between their processing, with the exception that one uh, side, on the left-hand side, does not include a not safe for work safety checker, and the ones on the right do, right? So 1B has no safe check. 1C has a safe check feature. They are available in both tall and wide formats. So the sampler, to put it pretty easily, I suppose, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a lot of these because we don't need tons of them. So what the sampler does is it takes things like your models, your prompts, your conditioning, your stylers, your LoRa's, potentially your control nets, etc. It combines that with a seed and the inputs that you provide to create an image out of latent space. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and look at the components of the sampler. Now, all the same components exist in each one of these. Right now, we're using the not safe for work free version. We'll move over and show you the other in just a moment. So in the upper left-hand corner of most modules is this little anchor key. That allows you to use the A and D keys to go back and forth through the various modules that you've placed onto your workspace. Down below that, there is a switch. All switches in Shima are this bright green. Most of them are binary switches, which allow you to choose between one or two options, or in some cases, turn something on or turn something off. But in most cases, like I said, they're binary. There's a variety of ways in which those are done, just because the types of nodes that we have to use in order to make the workflow work sometimes necessitate one versus another. In this case, it is a Boolean number that we are feeding in to tell it whether or not we want to use the common seed, which is fed from the commons group, or this seed down here in the white box. Throughout Shima, the white box is a seed node. Directly below that is a clip pass, and all this is doing is providing a convenient way to get clip into the wired outs, and that is literally its only function. I could also have just left it, and it would have wired up automatically here, as you can see, but I just enjoyed having it, wired, all of them wired directly to here. So I've left this node in. Directly below that, there is a efficient K sampler, and it takes all of these parameters, as well as the noise seed that we get from up here, and uses that to build your image. Down here is where you would, of course, set your settings, right? So how many steps do you want it to iterate for? How much freedom do you want it to have to interpret your prompts? What sampler type do you want to use? What scheduler, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the cool thing here is that this is really mostly just for playing around, right? You don't have to be some AI mathematics whiz to use this stuff. All you have to do is try stuff, right? Change it to 5, change it to 7, change it to 2, see what it does, right? Don't be afraid of it. You can't break it. And so, well, you can break it, but not by doing that. So we'll move on from the sampler. Once the sampler has finished its generation, and what the hell, we'll go ahead and start a generation right now in the background. And once it's finished its generation, it is going to pop up into our preview bridge right here. This preview bridge can be used to both, one, look at what you've got in a little bit bigger version. Secondly, if you wanted to, you could right-click it and choose Open in Mask Editor. Use this to, mask out a portion of the image. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. And then I can save it back to the node, right? And we'll have our mask there, and it will now output that mask throughout the workflow. Down below that is a little note that just kind of explains the importance of this node here. And you'll see this node in effectively every sampler, whether it's XL or 1.5, and whether it's wide or tall or whatever. This will tell you very specifically what to do. It says change gen image to a unique value if you're using greater than one sampler. And that's because these send nodes, the use everywhere nodes from Chris Gorringe, they do have one feature, and that is that this one node could target lots of different things. You know, it could target 100 image previews, all receiving this same image. But what you can't have is two nodes, two send nodes that are both saying send something to gen image, right? Because at that point you have a clash, you have a broadcast clash. So this must be a unique name for each sampler, right? It's pretty important. If you ever find yourself to where you don't see image nodes sending, check these. That's probably what's gone on. You've probably forgotten one. Then up here, these orange nodes all the way down. In Shima, the orange colored nodes are typically something that you can input text into to set some kind of a operational parameter, right? So really common ones are this group regex named target. This here refers to, let me zoom in on these so that we can see them a little better. This refers to the title of the group that we're sending our information to. In this case, the regex with the dot star or dot asterisk, send one dot asterisk, what that means is it's going to find any arbitrary number of characters in front of and in back of, or on the other side of, send one, right? So as long as send one is somewhere within the title of the group, then these send anywhere nodes are, or use anywhere nodes are going to send out to those groups. This group-based execution control is really important when you start doing really huge workflows, or where you might be doing comparisons. You might choose to make all of your one side have a specific code word within your groups, and then the other would have a different code word so that you can control where your images and things are getting sent to. It's pretty advanced, though. We're not going to worry about it right now because send one is by default what we apply to every single template, right? So you see they all have send one if required in their name, and that's so that everything just links up pretty naturally. The next one is a node title regex named target. This would be if you wanted to title a very specific node title. Usually you're not going to need to do that. It used to be pretty common where you had to, because this group regex didn't exist. But once we got that added in, this became less of an issue, right? So a lot of times you'll see this just stays at dot star or dot asterisk, and all that's saying is match everything, right? Regex universal target is also just a node that we can use for applying that to any particular input that we want to apply it to, right? So finally, down here, we have a separate mask target, and you'll see here that there's a mask already that we've got here. This mask target is because if we don't target the mask specifically, a lot of times you'll get broadcast clashes. So unless you happen to have a whole bunch of things called your target mask input name, this now won't clash, right? So just keep that in mind, that if you want to send your mask off to somewhere or to multiple somewheres, then you're going to want to give it a target name, and then you're going to apply that target name to the input of whatever it is that you're trying to send to, right? Down there, below there, this image passer is zipped up, or rather collapsed. And you'll see this a lot within Shima. You'll see collapsed nodes. You're going to see a bunch of them down here as well. And that's because typically you don't have to do anything with them. They're there for some workflow execution purpose that I've already thought through and figured out, so you don't have to. But if we do go ahead and open it up, we'll notice that all I'm doing is I'm bringing this image here into this node. And the reason for that is it makes it easier to connect up when you're putting in these next nodes. So these here are the workflow image nodes, and what these will do is they'll take they'll take this image, right, and whatever image it is, it's going to size it down, and then it's going to add text on top of that image as what it is. Some of the node or some of the characters that are used in the file name and for this name that will appear on the image, those are fed by the loader, and I have a loader over here, so I'll go and show you where those are from. In this case, SD15, because we're working within an SD15 loader, right? So if I go back over here now, that'll make a little more sense to you. If I enable this, what's going to happen is when I run this, it's going to go get that SD version name, and it's going to apply it onto the text that it will add to this image. And it will also add in a plus sign and then whatever name we have here, in this case setup, right? But it could be anything. I could call this tutorial, right? If I've made a big workflow or something and I want to be able to save that workflow out automatically, and I want it to be also easy to find, it will be saved in a folder under your outputs called workflow images under this name. Next up down here, we have the multi-pipe group target, and this is not used all the time. This is really just if you want to use the multi-pipe here, you can target the title and group regex for that multi-pipe, right? So let's just make one really quickly. Let's go ahead and we will make a multi-pipe out. So multi-pipe 1.5 out, right? And this is the other side of this. Normally you could do this, right? But we don't want to use wires because it's not really the Shima way. You can, and we'll show in later tutorials and stuff about when to use wires and when not to, because quite obviously we use a bunch of them. But the difference is that with Shima, all of the wires are internal to a specific module or an island, right? And these are like airplanes going between the islands, right? So we don't want to fly over, or we don't want to, try to walk across the water here. We're going to fly over the water, right? So I've got this here, and I want to pass this pipe to this one, right? It's going to use this multi-pipe send, but right now it doesn't know where to send it, right? It obviously doesn't want to send it to this, right? And it also doesn't know the title of the multi-pipe target. So let's give it one. We're going to change this one's title, and we're going to call it Alderon, right? And we're going to call this, the group target we'll just call group. Right. And now let's select this, right click, add group for selected node. Notice it's a capital G, so it's not going to send yet. It is case specific, right? Now, once we get this set up with Alderon in the title, make sure that we got the, little spelling mistake there, sorry. Not Aldrion, but Alderon. And it's 2 A's and 1 N. This part can get pretty annoying. I probably should have picked a more common word than Alderon. But now it's linked up, right? And so if this was the start of some other setup, let's say we're going to go over here and we're going to use all of these objects or all of these outputs to build another workflow, they would now be connected wirelessly, and we can have this anywhere within the system and it will automatically wire up. We don't have to have ugly wires that we have to traffic back and forth to it, right? So that's how that works. Let's go ahead and we'll remove Alderon here and go back into our larger view. You also have a set of wired outs if for some reason you want to build onto the sampler or you want to connect more samplers directly, right? You could do that. You could have another sampler add in another wide no safe check one, right? And then I can go ahead and connect them via our wired outs, right? Like so, right? VAE, et cetera, right? I don't know why you'd really want to do that because as you can see, they wire up automatically, but you might want to do that. You know, maybe you want to feed in a different model at each stage or something odd, you know, you have that option, right? So hopefully that is helpful to you. Beyond that, that's about it for the sampler. I think that's pretty in-depth, and you know, it's really not that tough to understand. I think you pick whether or not you want to get this seed or the common seed. You make your choices here. You wait for it to generate. If necessary, you do your masking or whatever you're going to do. You make sure that your target is correct, you know, your target name. These items will usually be correct by default until you get into more advanced stuff, at which point you'll know what to do with them. You tell it whether or not you want to save a workflow image out. By the way, let's go ahead and generate that really quickly. And then you can decide whether or not you want to pipe that information to another location. This is also totally optional. You don't have to use this. It's here for your use, but you don't have to do anything with it.